Okay, as you come on tonight, Sunday night, number one, thank you for joining me. My name is Coach Michael Burt. We're going to let people on. We're probably a minute or two early here. If you do have your cameras and you could turn your cameras on, I'd love to see those pretty faces. And we will be interacting with you tonight and taking you through some content that I think you will find valuable. And once we get a few more people on, I'm going to break down exactly why I'm doing these pop-up meetings. But it's, really a good way to test a concept. It's a good way to, if you've got concepts that you like to test to the market, one of the things I like doing is I actually like testing the concepts with people to see what resonates, what doesn't resonate as I come up with new concepts. And tonight is one of those new concepts that I've been codifying and deconstructing. What I'm really doing, Ryan, is I'm trying to make a decision on what book I want to write next, right? And I've got three or four big concepts that I've been thinking about. And every time I think I've got the concept that I want, because writing a major published book is kind of a labor of love. You're really committing to, probably 2 years, a year to 2 years of your life. So before I go down that path, instead of like the first 18 books where I just had a concept, really the first 21 books, before I just had a concept and started writing the concept, what I want to do is start testing the concepts. Which are universal concepts? Which one would resonate the most? Which one would hit the most people? And the one we're going to talk about tonight, I personally like, but I'm going to be doing this from time to time, and I'm going to reward people who register and show up versus put them on Facebook where people can kind of come and go and not be there. And I think this is a good way to test the concept. Now, what we're going to be talking about tonight is how do you find your next big opportunity? Okay. And if you said to me, what is a big problem that you see in the world, Coach, when you coach a lot of people? One of the biggest problems that I see is a lot of what I would call opportunity confusion. Okay. And opportunity confusion is where there's so many opportunities that you can't lock in on a big opportunity, right? So there's two problems that are really happening simultaneously. One is if you're a talented person, it's like, man, there's so many things you could do. And number two, it's like part of what Kiyosaki called in the rat race is just keeping the trains running, man. You need the revenue. You need the daily revenue to keep it going, to afford the lifestyle that you have. You got to keep the company going. And what happens is that sucks up almost all of your time. And you really don't have any time to actually focus on the biggest opportunity available to you. And this is the paradox. It's like, this is a big opportunity, but it needs time, and it needs attention, and it needs structure, and it needs you to move toward it. So what happens is during the week, you're busy keeping the trains running. And then on the weekends, you have kind of a time to think. And when you have a time to think, you're like, man, gosh, man, what I really want to do is this. But you're too busy. You're too busy doing what you're doing every day to actually pursue that, whatever that is. So what I've started doing is, originally I called this a level 10 opportunity. Okay. How do you get clear on a level 10 opportunity? And then I was coaching this guy who was a business broker, and he talked about the NLB, the next larger business, right? That his whole point of building your wealth was there's a liquidity event at some point. It's where you sell something, you get some cash, and you go find what he called the NLB, the next larger business. And I go, that's interesting. He had the NSB and the NLB, and these are things I could remember. And I go, what about the NBO? What about the next big opportunity? Okay. Now, what if I told you that no matter what you've done in your life, whether you're just getting started or you're making $1 billion, everybody's focused on the next big opportunity. Everybody's looking for their next big opportunity. Everybody's looking to leverage their past to move to a bigger future. Tomorrow, I'm speaking to insurance agents, and insurance agents in themselves will never make a whole lot of money just selling insurance. They're only really going to make a lot of money if they build an insurance agency, if they recruit insurance agents, if they partner with people, and then eventually move toward a liquidity event where someone comes along and purchases the insurance agency at a higher multiple. Now, there's a lot of ways to go about that. They could partner with people. They could merge with people that are doing similar. They could build it from scratch till they get a lot of people, and then they could sell it. But you're never really going to make a fortune if that's one of the things you want to do, just selling insurance, right? Like, could you make a good living? Of course. Could you make a couple $100,000? Of course. But you'll never make millions of dollars until you figure out the NBO, right? The next big opportunity. So our problem is the grind, is that we are investing our time and energy to get back to what I call a set point. You ever notice how you go to the gym and you work out and you eat right, but somehow you get back to the same weight? It's like there's a set point, right? Like I typically go between 167 and 172. That's my set point, right? And it's crazy because I go work out and I eat good, but I typically stay around that range. And then I went on a major diet probably 3 years ago, and I got down to or low 160s, and I looked thin. Everybody thought I was sick. They're like, "Are you okay?" Because you look too skinny. And but it's like somehow, Steve Miller, I get right back to that 167 to 172. It doesn't matter if I lift heavy. It don't matter if I box. It don't matter what I do. It's like a set point. Well, in the business world, it's like we work harder and harder to get back to the exact same point we were at before, right? If you're making $100,000, you get back to 100,000. Maybe you make 110. Maybe in a good year, you make 120. But you don't show a quantum leap. Like very seldom do you go from 100,000 to 1,000,000. You see where I'm going? It's like you just keep, right? When I was a coach, it's like I would win 25 games. In a good year, I'd win 28 games. My best team won 38 games and a championship, but it's like something had to happen. So the challenge is the grind that we're called in, and we're spending time and energy moving to a set point. Now, here's the good news about the grind is that you're actually building some primary skill. And this primary skill is going to be important at some point in the future when you can clearly identify this primary skill. For me, it was being a women's basketball coach, but I was building the skill of activating prey drive. I was building the skill of inner engineering. So I spent 13 years, and I went from no championship to championship, quantum leap, but then I was really building a skill that would be very valuable at some point in the future. So when you think about it, this is where this is the positive of the grind. Like we're grinding it out, but we're building a skill. Now, if we're grinding it out and we're not building a skill, this is the negative of the grind. Okay. So if we wake up 10 years from today and we're still doing the same thing, and we're still making the same money, and we're still muscling it out every day, then that's really not a quantum leap. The reason we're building that skill is because at some point we're going to use that skill. We're going to find the right vehicle, and we're going to show a quantum leap in that vehicle, which is where we would increase maybe 10 times, maybe 16 times, maybe 20 times. Okay. So all things are created twice, first mentally, then physically. So to show this next big opportunity, you kind of have to go there in your mind, and you kind of have to be open to the possibility that something could show a significant jump. You hear me talk a lot about having one greatness factory, but I'd really like to have 50 greatness factories. Well, that is possible, right? They're opening one Starbucks a day, or multiple Starbucks a day around the world, right? Like we work with somebody I studied for many years. They opened 400 WeWorks. They had 400,000 members in a concentrated period of time. So I want you to remember this. We go there in the mind before we go there in the body. Okay. All things are created twice. If I ask you, how much time do you spend when your mind is free on the weekend, visioneering your bigger future? How much time do you spend studying and studying people that have grown and scaled something that you would like to scale? Okay. How much time do you spend going there in the mind, right? Before you go there in the body. So when you think about it, I want you thinking the fastest way to find your next big opportunity is not follow a passion, but follow a curiosity. And it's like, man, I'm really curious on how they did this. I'm really curious in how they went from here to there. I'm really curious in how they wake up and do what they love doing every day. I'm really curious in, right? And so I never thought about the concept of quantum leaps for years. I didn't even know what a quantum leap was. I never even thought about a quantum leap. And then somebody gave me a little book by Price Pritchett called U Squared. And in the book U Squared, Pritchett talks about, it's a little handbook. He writes little handbooks that you could read literally in an hour. And he wrote a book called U Squared, and then he followed that book up by with a book called The Quantum Leap Strategy. And it's interesting because in that book, there's something about the way he writes that gets you thinking this is going to be easier. Like there's a much bigger, and he called it a seat at a bigger table. I was looking for a seat at a bigger table. Okay. So when you hear me talk about the NBO, the next big opportunity, I think first you have to go there in the mind and go, what does the big table mean for you? Okay. Now, Pritchett was a psychologist and he worked in the Pentagon, and then he was in the Army, he's in the military, then he worked in the Pentagon, and then he left and did executive assessments where they interviewed people, try to find assessments. And then he said, I'm looking for where the big money is, the big table. And the big table for him was in mergers and acquisitions, because companies merge, and when they merge, they have conflict, they have issues, they have culture issues, they have territorial thinking. It's human nature that when something merges, there's a lot of conflict. So he goes, that's where I need to use my degree in psychology. And he started doing big mergers and acquisitions, and then he became the best at it. And companies would probably pay millions of dollars to come in and do this. So when you think about a quantum leap for you, you first go there in the mind before you go there in the body. And it's like, okay, this is what the big table means to me. Okay. So when I'm speaking to these insurance guys tomorrow, they should be thinking, what does the big table mean to me? It means acquisition. It means merger. It means a sale, a liquidity event. It means something bigger than where I'm currently at. But if you don't believe in the idea of quantum thinking, then you're going to be stuck. So it's like, what is my next big opportunity? And it's like, okay, for me, it's like, okay, do we grow greatness factories? Do we do this? Do we do this? So when you're thinking about it, here is the pain, the problem, and what I would consider the solution to the NBO. The pain is, you know, there's a bigger table for you, but you're stuck at a smaller table. And this is a very frustrating place to be. Okay. No matter what you do, you're a level 10 person, but you feel stuck at a level 4 level. And it's like, you're caught in a trap and you cannot figure out how to walk out of this trap. Okay. The problem is you most likely have not defined what your level 10 opportunity or your NBO is. So when you study the brain is lazy. It goes back to what it knows, where it's comfortable. It'll just keep doing the same thing over and over and over until you tell it what you want, right? And once you tell it what you want, which is why I do the exercise A to B so much, is because once I tell the brain what I want, the brain starts kind of churning into a supercomputer, and it starts going, okay, who can help me do this? Who can help me move toward this big opportunity? Okay. Now, let me use a real life example here. When I first started building a greatness factory, number one, it took me 6 years to build a greatness factory. 2016 to 2024. Really, it took me, 8 years to build a greatness factory, just one. And then I go to people and I go, man, I want to scale this idea. I really think it could be big. And here's what they would tell me, Rod Williams. They'd say, well, you got to build the first one and you got to show that it's profitable. And once the first one's profitable, then you can build the second one. And once the second one's profitable, then you can build a third one. It's so depressing. It's like, this is going to take freaking forever. It's freaking going to take forever to do that. And then it's like, we had a meeting at the Greatness Factory a few weeks ago where I brought in a publicly traded company. And they pitched their idea to invest in the company. While they were there at the Greatness Factory, the stock doubled in 1 hour. That means if you'd invested $100,000 in that particular stock, the stock would have been worth $200,000 in 1 hour. And I go, now that's a freaking quantum leap right there. Right? So the truth is, you don't have to do things one at a time. Okay. You could actually go, you know what? Who has built something at scale, and they built more than one, and they built a bunch at one time? And the brain goes, who could help me do that? Who could help me do that? Right? Because quantum leaps are going to come through two things: exposure to someone who has a strategy that you don't know. See, I don't have to accept the premise of you got to build one, you got to show it's profitable, you got to go build two. Like that's just that's someone's opinion. I don't have to accept it. I go, you know what? I don't accept that. I actually believe, what if we went out and raised $20 million and we just built 5 at a time? And you say, well, the first thing your brain's going to do is go, well, this is real hard. And I'm like, well, it's not that hard, man. It's a freaking office space. You have co-working, you have private offices, you got a cool theater, you got, right? It's not as complicated as we're making it here. Okay. But so what happens is somebody comes along and goes, nope, this is exactly how we could do it because I've done it before, right? I know how to do it. So the quantum leap happens because somebody comes along and goes, man, I know how to do this. This is exactly how you do it. So a quantum leap comes through exposure. I'm around somebody, I see somebody, or it comes through people. It comes through people. And a person comes along and says, I know how to do this. Right? I've always wondered, if I went back to coaching high school kids, how long it would take me to get back to winning a championship. Because once you've already won a championship, you know things other people don't know, right or wrong. It's like, could I take another team and get back there in 3 years versus 11 years or 12 years? Because I know how to do it. Now, this is why people that lose money know how to go back and make money again, because they've already done it before. So when you think about it, when you think about luck or things like that, luck happens because you move and you circulate and you meet somebody and they go, I know exactly how to do this. Okay. The question is, are you open to it? So a lot of people are 8-figure people, but they're stuck in 6-figure vehicles. They're 8-figure people stuck in 6-figure vehicles. Okay. And the problem is, either they haven't met that person who could take it and grow. I always use the example of John Maxwell's going along. He's writing books. Paul Martinelli comes along to John Maxwell and he says, let me handle your certifications. I'm going to come in and handle everything: the emails, the coaching, the structure. And all I want you to do is show up about 3 days a year. And they certified 33,000 coaches initially for $350 million. So I'm always saying, who's my Martinelli? Who is my Martinelli that knows how to do this? See, that's a question you should be asking yourself. Who is your Martinelli? See, Johnny Carrabba, I ate at Carrabba's the other day for lunch, and Johnny Carrabba didn't scale Carrabba's restaurant. The guys from Outback went to Johnny Carrabba and said, we love your little Italian restaurant. Let us take it all over the world. And they went and built 280 restaurants using his name, his recipes, and he gets 1% of the total revenue forever. Now, each restaurant's doing $10 million, and you got 280 of those, and you get 1% of the total revenue forever. It's a big opportunity. See, he didn't even know that opportunity existed. He was just focused on his one little restaurant, just making a great little restaurant. So I'm always asking myself and telling myself, pick a destiny. Pick a lane versus having 100 lanes. Pick 3 big opportunities. Ask the question of, who can help me get there? I'm at A. And what does B look like? And how do I go from mental creation into physical action? And a physical action is one step. See, just by talking about the NBO, what is your next big opportunity? It makes you think, what steps do I need to take? Who do I need to contact? Who can help me do this? Because so many people get stuck in that mental creation. I don't know how to do it. And that one statement of, I don't know how to do it, will keep you at the same point forever. So what we got to do is we got to get into movement. We got to get into movement. I call it going from mental creation into physical action. Okay. And you say, well, what does that look like? If I say I want to open 3 greatness factories within 50 miles of each other, one in Nashville, one in Cool Springs, one in Brentwood, whatever, then the first thing I need to do is just go over to Cool Springs and look at office space and go, which office space looks good for a greatness factory here? See where I'm going? That's the first thing I need to do is I need to go see it, touch it, and go, all right, how much does it cost to have an office over here? Who would run this greatness factory over here? Who would do this? See, I go from mental creation into a physical action. Who could help me? I may raise my hand and say, who would like to be a partner with me in the Brentwood area for a greatness factory? And somebody says, boom, okay, here's what it looks like. See, that is going from mental creation into physical action. But if I don't have a B goal, it's like I never take an action toward that. So I stay stuck in this little bitty vehicle over here. I'm stuck in this vehicle over here. And some of you are stuck in vehicles that cannot get you to your goals, not in its current structure. It's like you got big goals, but you just can't get there the way you're currently trying to get there. Okay. It's like the vehicle, no matter how hard you work, no matter how many times you show up, like no matter what it is, it's like you're never going to get to where you're trying to get to that way. Okay. Now, quantum leap is when I was a basketball coach, I make $50,000 a year. What if I could generate $50,000 a day versus $50,000 a year? Okay. There's a show in Wall Street. There's a scene in Wall Street where Michael Douglas, if you ever go back and he's on that big phone, he's got that big phone up to his ear, and he said, "Man, I remember when 800,000 was a great year. Now 800,000 is just an average day." And what he's doing is that's a quantum leap. It's like, hey, man, how do I make 800,000 a day, not a year? Could your current vehicle even do it in its current structure with the number of people you currently have? Okay. So it's like, okay, what do I need to do? And I put down, I need to go back to 3 things. I need to go back to my primary skill, number 1. I need to go back to the problem that I'm going to solve, number 2. And I need to go back to the vehicle, number 3. Okay. Cardone once said, I could never build $1 billion coaching company, but I could build $1 billion real estate company. What he figured out was that the coaching business could never get him to those goals. He needed a new vehicle. He needed a seat at a bigger table. So the first thing is like, what is your primary skill? And this is important because when you're using this skill, it's like this skill is going to get you to the big leagues. Okay. And if the skill and that the more money that's associated, the stronger that skill is going to have to be. Okay. Now I was coaching a college basketball coach today, a Division I coach. And I told them, right now you have a $200,000 skill, let's say, but you don't have $1 million skill. Because if you had $1 million skill, you'd be coaching at a place that paid you $1 million. Everybody see that? Your skill is proportionate to the income you're currently making, unless you have a bigger skill, you have the great skill in the wrong vehicle. Does everybody see that? Okay. Now, it could be for this coach, they're coaching at the wrong school. Maybe they could be at a bigger school. Maybe they could be $1 million person, but they're in a $100,000 to $200,000 vehicle. Okay. It's very important because I look at the skill of a person. I look at the problem they're uniquely qualified to solve, and then I look at the vehicle that they're using. And many times I'll go, man, I don't like that vehicle. I don't like the vehicle of real estate agents because there's no recurring revenue. There's no residual. There's no, right? It's like once you sell a house, you got to go sell another house. I don't like the model of a mortgage originator because the same thing. You got to sell a house. You got to go. There's no recurring revenue. There's no, right? It's hard to sell the business. I look at the vehicle and I go, man, I just don't like that vehicle. I just don't think it can get you to your goals. Can you, unless you become a major recruiter. Now, I was on a cruise ship last week that where, you know, one of the real estate guys had a downline of 45,000 people. Well, when you got a downline of 45,000 people, you're probably making 10 to 20 million. You see where I'm going? But his primary skill was selling real estate, but then he become great at recruiting. The skill of connection. So skill, problem, vehicle. And you got to ask yourself, in your current vehicle, Can it get you to your goals? Okay. Without killing you. Okay. Without killing you. Now, there's some tools that you're going to need in the tool shed to find your next big opportunity. Okay. And when I start looking at this, I look at the habits of the top 1% of performers. And I go, okay, if you're going to get to this level, you're going to need some skills or attributes in the tool shed. Okay. Number one, you're going to need a remarkable boldness that most people don't have. And let me tell you why you're going to need this boldness. There's going to come times where you're going to have to make big investments and use your own capital to put into a deal, to put into learning something, and it's going to scare you to death. Okay? It's going to scare you to death. And you're going to need the boldness to fight through that period of lack of courage. Okay. Now, you guys have heard me talk about the way I spoke at 10X. You know, I bought $100,000 worth of tickets. I made $100,000 investment in tickets. I turned around and resold those tickets. I made generate $250,000. So I made $150,000 off my investment. But when I purchased the tickets, I didn't know how I was going to make the money back. Okay. It was a very bold move to bet on me. Now, that investment, that $100,000 investment, has probably been the greatest return of any $100,000 I've ever invested in, because I probably generated $1.5 million to $2 million off the $100,000 investment. See where I'm going? Okay. That was scary, but it was a moment where I just went, boom. A boldness. You're going to need a boldness because there's going to become, because see that a guy the other day said to me, if I give you $1 million right now for the Greatness Factory and I can take it all around the country, would you give me 50% of it? 50% of the concept. And I went, hell no, I'm not giving you 50% of it. Like, this is my blood, sweat, and tears. And then I went home that night and thought, well, what if he went and grew 100 of them? And he did all the work. And I didn't do that. He did it. Right? And I thought, see, this is a problem. Adam Coffey said this when he came to the Greatness Factory. Biggest problem with small business owners is they get emotional about their name being attached to something, and they can't let it go. And because of that, it never grows. There's only so much capital you can use. There's only so much debt you can have before the bank says, I'm not giving you any more money. Your debt to income ratio is not where it needs to be. And so what happens is you can't grow. So you either have to use other people's time or other people's money or other people's expertise. But guess what they want for that, Steve Miller? They want a piece of the pie. They don't come for free. They don't go, you know what, I'll do all this for you for free. The skilled people are going to say, this is how much my time and energy is worth. You ever watch Shark Tank? Where they go, look, for me to make this investment and you get me, this is how much I need of that business. 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%. Okay. So you're going to need remarkable boldness. If you don't have this, you're never going to fight through your feelings, and you're never going to let other people help you. Number two, you're going to need a lot of intrinsic motivation. Big reasons to do things when you don't feel like it. We call those because goals. Number three, you're going to need great connection skills. You're going to need great connection skills. Number four, you're going to need grit and resilience. And number five, you're going to need the ability to lock in and see something through to its conclusion. Okay. These are tools in the tool shed you're going to need to show a quantum leap to go toward the NBO. So first, I got to pick the NBO. It's like, all right, NBOs are highly enjoyable, highly profitable, highly meaningful. NBOs, there's a return on my energy. There's a return on my investment. There's a return on my objectives. Okay. So if my NBO is to do what, if to go out and do something big, it's like, do I have this skill set to do this? Do I have this skill set to go do it? Or do I need to go acquire this skill set? Do I have the boldness to go do it? Do I have the intrinsic motivation to go do it? Do I have the prey drive to do it, which is the instinct to pursue? It's like if it's not big enough, it's like, it's a good idea, but I don't want to do that. What's the big idea that you're willing to pursue? Okay. Now, when you think about all of this stuff and you go back to this defining it, I kind of brushed over something a minute ago, but But I really want you to step back and ask these questions. When you do the exercise A to B, okay, you should be doing it every day, number one. And I want you to write A, what you're frustrated with. What you're frustrated with about where you are in life. I'm a level 10 person stuck at a level 4. My income's not where it needs to be. I don't have any passive income. I'm too involved in the sales cycle. Whatever it is you don't like about where you are, I want you to put that down at A. And at B, I want you to say, okay, if I woke up tomorrow and life was as close to perfect as it could be, what would have to happen for me to do that? Okay. And in between A and B is I need these people. And sometimes these people are just people who are teaching you something. They're just pouring into you. Okay. They're people who can help you move from A to B. And then it's like, I need internal who's. I need 2 more of these. I need 3 more of these. I need 1 of these. Okay. And then I need to go from mental creation into physical action. And I think you need no more than 3 level 10 opportunities, 3 NBOs. But where is this going? Where is this going? Now, a couple of years ago, I tried to do a deal with a coaching company that was a $25 million coaching company. They had 300 coaches. And I went to them and said, let's partner. I'm getting 2,000 leads a month, and I don't have enough salespeople. You have 300 salespeople, and you're not getting 2,000 leads a month. Let's put my leads with your salespeople, and I think we can do 50 million together. And I get a percentage and you get a percentage. And we were very close to doing that deal. And then the CEO left, some of the key leadership team left, and then we never put that deal together. But I thought, see, that's one way to get toward the NBO. Everybody see that? It's like, I need more people. Okay. And it's like, who has the people that I'm looking for? Do I want to go do that? Or does somebody else want to do that? Then I try another strategy. What if I bring on a sales manager? What if I bring in somebody to recruit people? What if I bring in somebody to manage people? What if I bring in somebody to do this? And you try these things and you go, nope, that didn't work. Nope, that didn't work. Okay. Nope, that didn't work. And you try these various things and you're open to anything, closed off to nothing. Okay. Now, I'm doing something new called venture coaching. That's where I kind of put my expertise into a company. I don't take a piece of equity of the company, but I get a 30% override over the increase of the company. And we took on a recruiting company, and in the very first month they increased their revenue by 500,000, maybe $500,000 dollars. Okay, let's say I get 30% of that, Steve Miller. Let's say they collect 500,000 and I get 30%. And I get 150,000. Listen to this, Travis. I didn't do the work. They did the work. All I did was introduce them to people. All I did was give them some guidance and counsel. All I did was took my 20 or 30 years of coaching to go, you need to do this, you need to do this. And then I pick up the phone, I make an introduction. Hey, you guys are looking for people. Let me introduce you to my recruiting company. Right. And I started leveraging. So I messaged Jeremy Miner the other day and I go, man, you coach thousands of salespeople. I got a recruiting company that I'm now working with and I'm a partner in. What if we introduced our recruiting company and our assessment company to you? Right. And that's another thing you got. See, to me, that's a quantum leap. Okay. Making key introductions. Right. So what happens here, and then I'll take some Q&A here in just a second, when it comes to this NBO, is you can't really get focused in what the NBO is. So you just keep doing this same thing over and over and over and over and over. Part of my B goal is that I don't have to work as hard to get to the same place. It's like, how do I get to this place easier versus harder? Okay. And that's going to come through time, energy, people, or technology. Anytime you scale something, time, energy, people, or technology. Okay. So what's your action items from tonight? Number one, if you feel like you're a level 10 person stuck in a level 4 level, you need to do the exercise A to B every day. It's from a book I wrote called From A to B. Obviously, in the book Flip the Switch, I go through Prey Drive, the various psychology of Prey Drive. How do you activate that drive? But if you ask me what book that I've written that I read over and over and over, it's A to B. Okay, because A to B is 15 questions that forces you to get clear. Now, I just finished a book that we're editing right now called 8-Figure Skill Sets Stuck in 6-Figure Vehicles. And it's really how you parlay a skill into a bigger deal. And that book will be out probably in the next, I don't know, couple of months. So it's just a book about how, like, you getting stuck. Now, if you're new and you want to do a strategy call with me, just email Jana@coachburt.com. I do X number of strategy calls per month. And if you're serious about really finding your NBO and, you're new to us and you want to do a strategy call, then I'm certainly open with that. And then last thing would be, man, if you're thinking about coming to my conference, September 26th through the 28th, you're going to be around people who have made quantum leaps in the business. Rory Vaden, that took brand builders from 0 to 8 figures in less than 3 years. Renee Rodriguez, one of the top neuroscience experts in the world. Okay. You're going to be around people who have done what you're trying to do. You're going to be around people who have made these significant jumps in their career. And fastest way to make a quantum leap, find your NBO, is get around people who've actually done it and ask them, like, what did you do? How did you do it? Okay. And really get serious about that. So concept is NBO, how to find your next big opportunity. Sometimes we call it a level 10, but it's finding your next big move. And it's getting a lot of clarity between A and B on what you got to do to do it. But more importantly, man, you got to get out and do something. You got to move toward it. You got to take an action toward it. Just talking about it keeps me thinking about my NBO. Okay. And what if the coaching business becomes an opportunity brokering business? Okay. What if the coaching business becomes an opportunity to meet great people, to do bigger deals, to raise capital, to do partnerships, to do venture coaching deals, right? See, I wasn't thinking like this 15 years ago. I was just thinking about, how do I go out and get a deal? How do I make some money? How do I go out and close a contract? How do I deliver? I wasn't thinking, let me help you grow this and me get a percentage of it. I wasn't thinking, here's a business that I'd like to take part in. I wasn't thinking move toward the NBO. I was just thinking about survival. And I wish somebody would have came along and said, okay, structure this in such a way that it could be sold at some point. Structure this in such a way that, you could partner with people at some point. Structure this in such a way, right? Like, I didn't have that guidance. So nobody ever came along and taught me this. It's like think at a bigger level. Now, when I'm counseling people and telling people, I'm like, where is this going? Like, what's the purpose of this? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, what is the exit? Where is the liquidity event? Because the way to build real wealth is there's got to be a liquidity event at some point. Would you agree? At some point, you got to sell something and make a bunch of money. Okay. And for me, initially, it was build a primary skill, use that skill through the coaching business, go buy real estate. Right. And I bought 4 single-family residential houses. I put $100,000 down. I sold those 2 or 3 years later for $400,000. I made $300,000 on my $100,000 investment. Now I got $400,000. Everybody see that? Then I just kept working that cycle. Then I went and bought the lodge, and that was a bigger investment. And then I went and bought the house in Florida, and that was a bigger investment. And then I went and built the Greatness Factory in Nashville, and that was the $7 million. Now, as that's happening, my net worth is going up. You see that? Because I'm buying all this real estate. And as I'm buying more real estate, my net worth is jumping up. My borrowing power is jumping up. My brand is jumping up. And I go, where did all that come from? It came from primary skill through the vehicle of coaching, leveraging it into real estate, and then parlaying that real estate into bigger deals. Okay. So I always say, if everything went to hell and I had to sell all my real estate, I'd cash out with millions of dollars because I have millions of dollars of real estate. Where did the real estate come from? It came from me being great at my coaching job. Okay. So now I use the real estate to pull people toward us and exchange, right? Greatness Factory is like a capital factory because the right people are coming to the Greatness Factory. Okay. Now, I don't have time to unpack how all that leads to bigger opportunity, but just know that it leads to bigger opportunity when you put great people together who are trying to do deals. And then you start leveraging influence. Okay. All right. So let's take some questions tonight. Anybody, what were your thoughts for tonight on what you picked up? Because if you don't have clarity of the NBO, then you're going to keep doing what you're currently doing. And I always say we'll have this conversation 5 years from today, and you'll be doing the same thing that you're currently doing. Okay. So it's like, where am I trying to go? What am I trying to do? Who can help me do it? Who can help me do this? Okay. And then here's the next point. Will you invest the money to get in the room with these people and actually learn from them on what you need to know to go get to a higher level? Because that's really what it comes down to. People go, well, it's expensive to go learn that. And, it could be expensive to go learn it, but it's going to be real expensive not to learn it. Because what it's going to cost you is a lot of time when you don't know how to do it. Okay. What questions you guys have tonight? I got time for about 10, 2 or 3 questions. Steve Miller, what you got?
Quick question on just how you handle your time. One of the things that I've gotten caught in is, you just keep working harder, keep trying harder, keep pushing. But when I start doing that, I stop having time to just relax and be curious and start looking at things a little bit different. And then I miss out on some opportunities because I'm not thinking different. So how do you construct your time so that you're not just caught up in action all the time, so you can actually think things through?
Well, I think, if you go back and study Richard Koch, Koch wrote the 80-20 principle, which he got from Pareto. Pareto had a principle called 80-20, said that, 80% of the wealth is controlled by 20% of the people. 80% of the people pay the most money are really 20% of the people. And I want you to think about, if you thought like that, it really got me thinking, like, what is the absolute highest value of my time every day to move toward that next big opportunity? And the funny thing is, most of my time is not spent in those areas. It's spent in 80% of the activity that don't move you toward the goal. Okay. If I decided I got 3 big NBOs, one is to scale greatness factories, one is to do this, one is to do this, then my time, 80% of my time should be spent in those areas. It should not be spent solving small problems. Okay. So when you really go back and read some of that, the people that spend 80% of their time on the 20% of activities that are most important actually outproduce other people by 16 times, is what the numbers show. So it's like Pritchett wrote a book called The 16 Times Principle, which is really from Richard Koch. If you really go back and study him, it's like, what's the highest use of your time? Could you spend 80% of your time with the top 20% of your customers that give you the most money versus all the other activities that we spend time doing all day? It's got nothing to do with the next big opportunity. That's really what is the trap that people get caught in, is just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. But they don't step back and go, okay, is this a high value of my time toward where I'm actually trying to get to? Okay. And so that's why you got to define the B goal and go, the B goal is this. Now, what can I do today to move the ball to move the ball down the field tomorrow toward that? Okay. Good question. Ryan?
Thanks, Coach. If you could go back to your coaching days, would you have identified the NBO sooner? What would you wish that you would have done sooner? And how would you have kind of judged, well, I'm still in my skill building phase, or maybe I stayed in my skill building phase for a little bit too long and I wish I was looking for the NBO? How do you delineate that?
Yeah, I think early on, I never spent time asking the question, why are these people paying me this money? Like my first 4 years when I was doing corporate coaching and I was going into companies, I never really spent enough time identifying the primary skill. And I never even thought about the NBO. So the primary skill was activation of prey drive. Didn't give it a name during those days, but I should have. The primary skill was building competitive intelligence in teams. The primary skill was helping them get a much bigger result. And I didn't really even know how to sell it. I didn't know how to sell that skill. I would just go out and it happened. But nobody came along and said, where is this going? Right. And that's why me talking about this NBO is like, okay, how would I have structured it differently? Would I have certified coaches early in my career? Would I have started building coaches who could coach instead of me? Would I have jumped over to a different structure versus just doing everything? So I think if I'd go back and talk to myself, I would say, look, a poorly designed business has to be redesigned at some point in the future. Let's design the business in a way that you actually enjoy. Now, you may have to do some things that you don't enjoy, right? To figure out, I don't like doing that. I don't want to do that. Like now in my career, I only want to coach 3 days a week. I don't want to coach 5 days a week. I want to coach 3 days a week. I want to have a day a week to just do whatever I want to think, to study, to read, to exercise, to do whatever. Well, I didn't structure it that way in the beginning. And I didn't think, what's a big opportunity here? I just thought I'll just go coach. And then at some point I'm like, man, this sucks. Like I need some time to step back and think different about this. Okay. And then I didn't think about buying real estate. I didn't think about publicly traded companies. I didn't think about all these things. Now, there could be an argument that some people would make is you wouldn't have all the opportunities you do today if you didn't go out and do all the things that you did, right? You know, there is an argument for that. But having said that, I like the NBO structure so I can go, okay, I own an insurance agency, and in 5 years, I want to build this thing and sell it. In 5 years, I want to partner, right? Hey, I'm a therapist, and here's where I want to go in the next 3 years. And that's the NBO for me. What's the seat at the bigger table? I love that phrase, the bigger table. What is the bigger table? Okay. When I was in high school coaching, the bigger table was to become a college coach. That's the only bigger table I knew. Right. I didn't think about, it's like, okay, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to be a Major I Division I coach. That's the bigger table for me. Okay. Bob Ritchie. Let me unmute you. You need to unmute you there.
Sorry about that. I keep forgetting. I don't want to have audio break in. My biggest, I guess, concern is really trying to understand what my primary skill is.
Yeah.
I'm working on, I guess you could say, NBO, getting involved with multifamily investing, trying to build a team. In fact, we meet tomorrow night. And so trying to pull all these different functions together, I think I've learned enough from a standpoint. I understand the moving parts. Now to me, it's finding the right people to fit those moving parts and give them the authority to, basically act for the team.
Well, I think knowing your primary skill is very important because it's like, how am I going to distribute my skill to this equation? Okay, to this particular equation to show increase. It's like, okay, it's like, what am I going to do here? What am I going to do here to take my skill and add increase to whatever it is I'm doing, right? If I'm a multifamily guy, like what is my skill that I'm bringing to this equation? Am I going to find deals? Am I going to raise capital? Am I great at building a team? You know what I'm saying? It's like, once I know my primary skill, it's like, okay, how do I distribute that skill through a vehicle toward the NBO? See where I'm going?
Not quite.
Okay. So, all right. So I got asked to join the board of a publicly traded company last week. It's probably going to come out tomorrow. There's only so many, you can only have so many board members on a board of directors. You don't have 100. You have a small number, right? And they're looking at all these different people, and everybody had a different skill. And it's like, okay, what does Coach Burt bring to the equation? Well, I know how to get people excited. I know how to transfer confidence. I know how to activate prey drive. So when this company was there at my Greatness Factory a week or two ago, the value of the stock doubled in an hour while they were at my Greatness Factory. And that was because people were buying the stock. Okay. And people were buying the stock because we were talking about it. Right. And that's how the value of stock goes up. The more people who are talking about it, the more people are excited about it, the more people are buying it. The more people are buying it, the more it goes up. And so when I was talking to one of the other board members, he was like, what do you bring to the table? Why are we putting you on the board? He was really grilling me. And I said, well, I finally said, look, man, I said, since you've been on the board, is the value of the stock doubled in an hour? And he's like, well, no. And I said, okay, that's why they're asking me to be on the board. Because the value of the stock doubled when they were with me. So apparently I know something. Now, what is it that I know how to do? Get people excited, get them to take action, get them to activate the prey drive, get them to want to play at a bigger level. That is my skill set. And that is a hard skill. Well, that's hard for some people to get their mind around. So it's like, once I know what my primary, but that conversation made me think, what is my primary skill? What am I really good at? Is it painting a picture of the future? Is it getting people excited to take an action? Like, what is the skill? And that's really the question you got to ask. What skill do you have and what problem does it solve? And who would pay you the most money for the skill? Okay. See, that's a usage I never really thought about using the skill on, is to serve on the board of a publicly traded company. It never occurred to me that that's what I'd be doing. But that could be a quantum leap opportunity. See where I'm going? So everybody on here needs to find the primary skill and know how to distribute that skill. Okay. And if not, you're just caught in a trap that you can't walk out. Okay. And it's like, man, I'm just stuck on this deal. So this is why I've been talking about this. This is why I've been studying the quantum leaps. This is why I'm interested in it, because I think everybody's looking for a seat at a bigger table. That is the NBO. Okay. How did I find that skill? A lot of introspection. I think you can have confusion. I actually think the problem is people are skilled at a lot of things, but they typically have a primary skill and they can't quite figure out what the primary skill is. And I think you got to really ask yourself, okay, one of the first quantum leaps I had, if you ever heard me tell my stories, I was a high school coach making $2,500 a month, working 80 hours a week. And I spoke at Dell Computers, and they paid me more in an hour than I made in a month. Then I was speaking in West Tennessee, $1,500 for the day, which was basically half of what I made in a month. And at the end, the woman said, I want you to be our coach, and we're going to pay you $144,000. That's $12,000 a month. And she said, for 1 week of coaching. Now, instead of working a year for $50,000, I was working a week. Okay. A week, a month for $144,000. Everybody see how the quantum leaps work? So I went home and I go, what skill do I have? What am I doing? It's like, what am I doing for these people? I'm keeping them excited. I'm keeping them motivated. Where does that skill come from? It comes from my past. So this is how it's like, I know how to insert, I guess a better way to say it, Bob, is I know how to insert my skill into a situation that opens doors. Okay. And then people go, that skill's valuable. That is a valuable skill. Okay. It's like, okay, how valuable is that skill? It's valuable enough to be in a key position. It's valuable enough to tackle this opportunity. You see where I'm going? Like, if I wanted to go back and be a college basketball coach today, I mean, could I do that? Of course I could. Could I go to a company and say, I only want to coach this company? It's going to be $1 million a year for me just to coach this company. There would be a company who would pay me $1 million a year just to coach their people. Okay. So that is a skill. So what is the skill? Is it keeping people excited? Is it activating the prey drive? Is it helping them find the NBO? Is it bringing structure? Like, spend a lot of time just thinking, like, what do I bring to this table that is the most valuable, that would actually move the needle? Everybody see that? And move the needle toward what? The NBO. Okay. The NBO. Okay. Good session tonight, guys. Thank you for being coachable. This was fun. Get obsessed with the NBO. Get obsessed with it. Wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. Wake up in the morning thinking about it. Think about it when you go on a bike ride. Think about it when you're working out. Okay? Because I'm telling you, I don't want you to wake up 3 years from today and not be closer to that goal. Okay? If I can help you, email Jana, get you some time. If you know Kelly, talk to Kelly at coachburt.com. She can help you. Just tell her what you're trying to do, and we'll get you into the right vehicle. Sound like a plan? All right. Have a good night, guys. Thank you.